When was the last time you saw a grown man cry on screen in a mainstream Hollywood action film or TV show? And when I say cry, I don't mean one manly tear that drips down his cheek emotionlessly as he watches all of his loved ones die. I mean full-on bawling his eyes out. And it wasn't considered weird or played off as some moment of comedy.
A million times yes.
I thought big people weren't supposed to cry. I think it's sweet that he's crying like a little bit. Megan!
Because it happens all the time in anime, and I'm here to tell you that this is a good thing. Now firstly, why is it good for male figures to cry on screen? Well, in a time when male suicide is the biggest cause of death for men under 50, and when 3/4 of suicide deaths are men, men's mental health has never been a more important issue to discuss. The picture is very clear. Men struggle to talk about their feelings because they're worried that showing emotion and expressing themselves will make them seem unmasculine or weak.
No, it's not funny, and I wasn't crying, okay? There's a lot of debris around here.
And bottling those feelings, they would rather take their own lives than seek help or deal with their emotions in a healthy way. Whether we like it or not, the things we see in popular media shape our culture, and if men are told by society that they should never cry and never have feelings, well, it is literally killing them. So to understand this issue a bit better, I'd like to focus on two things: the ability for men to express their emotions on screen, and the empathy that they show with the people around them, or often the lack of it.
It's my nerves, sir. I just can't stand the shelling anymore.
Shut up! Don't have a yellow bastard sitting here crying in front of these brave men who've been wounded in battle.
Now before we discuss Hollywood and what it does, let me first start by explaining what I appreciate about anime, and in particular for this discussion, shonen anime, which simply refers to an anime that features a protagonist who is a young, usually teenage male.
I'm gonna be the king of the pirates! You hear me?
Anime are no paradise of representation. They are often problematic as well, especially with their presentations of women and people of color. But one thing they really do right is the characteristics they value in their main male characters. The first is empathy. Now the cliche of anime is that the main character is always special in some way. They're the strongest fighter, the secret chosen one, the one who is the most determined to become the Hokage or the king of pirates or the greatest chef of all time. But one thing almost all of these characters have without fail is empathy. What actually stands them apart, even within their own worlds, and what usually defines the progress of the entire show, is that they are great at making friends because they genuinely care for everyone they meet. If we focus on just some of the most prominent and popular anime of recent times, we can see this clearly. Luffy from One Piece almost always follows the same arc. He arrives in a cool new place that initially seems great, meets some local who he bonds with quickly, and then learns that there's some fundamental corruption or problem that is oppressing the people of this land. From that point on, he will risk life and limb to fight on behalf of those people to liberate them and make his friend happy. His crewmates follow without question because he's already done the same thing for them in the past. Naruto and Deku from My Hero Academia follow parallel journeys as well. Both start as weak, unremarkable fighters who gain the love and affection of everyone around them simply because they are capable of showing great empathy for all their peers. And perhaps most incredibly, they don't just reserve that empathy for their friends. They extend this empathy even to their enemies. Like when Deku is repeatedly told by everyone around him that he needs to kill his greatest enemy, but rejects this idea because he believes there is humanity in everyone that should be fought to be saved.
And I get that the only way to stop him might be to kill him, but
I want to save that little kid!
And similarly, multiple times in Naruto, our title character fights against a villain who is essentially a misguided version of himself. This is a trope we often find in Hollywood as well, where supervillains are often just alternate versions of superheroes but end up down a dark path for some tragic reason. But rather than kill or condemn his enemy to his fate, Naruto frequently empathizes with the villain, reasons with them with his words, and eventually often gets them to turn over a new leaf and join the side of good, as he does with the characters of Gaara, Pain, and arguably Sasuke. But perhaps the most incredible example of an empathetic male main character in any television show that I've ever seen is Tanjiro from the anime Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is set in a world where humans must fight demons, creatures who were formerly human beings but were converted to demons and now hunt humans for their blood. Like a traditional anime protagonist, Tanjiro is deeply empathetic. He sees the best in everyone around him and inspires them all to be better versions of themselves.
Oftentimes when you help others, you're helping yourself. I was planning to go anyway, so why not?
Male characters in the show frequently look to his kind and empathetic nature and resolve to become more like him, to be better, kinder people too.
A demon and a child. My objective is to annihilate that upper-ranked demon and protect the village at all costs. Saving an inexperienced budding swordsmith won't amount to anything.
Life is a way of rewarding good deeds. Often when you help others, you're helping yourself.
I'd like to dwell on this for a moment because so often when we're told about leadership and masculinity, we think of men leading with their physical strength. If they are to inspire, it's by a show of force or by inciting fear.
I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
But to inspire by positive example is an idea that is rarely spoken about for men. To make others want to be good and help people simply by living by those principles yourself. That is a truly amazing thing to see. But what is incredible is that Tanjiro repeatedly shows such overwhelming empathy for even the demons that he's fighting that he is pained by the very act of needing to kill them. At one point in the show, after defeating a pair of demons who were brother and sister, Tanjiro watches as they're spending their final moments arguing. They start blaming each other and saying hateful things to one another, only for Tanjiro to intervene and stop the brother from saying harsh things he would regret in his dying moments with his sister. Remember, these are creatures who have murdered countless people and are actively seeking to kill him, and yet Tanjiro still is able to humanize them. This is yet another very important lesson in today's world, where empathy is hard and sometimes impossible to come by. In an era where social media is constantly dividing everyone, we often cease to have empathy for even those who are on our side, let alone those who hold views contrary to our own. Of course, to have empathy is not to give people a blanket pass to do or say reprehensible things without consequence, but it simply means to remember that they are human, even when they least seem it. And a part of empathy, and a big part of being good at making friends, is the ability to show and express your emotions honestly. And that is what all these characters are capable of doing. They tell people that they love and appreciate them, they praise others who do good things, and importantly, they cry. They cry when they're happy, they cry in fear, and they cry, as anyone should, at moments of extreme sadness like loss. This scene from One Piece, when Luffy wakes up after watching his brother Ace die in his arms and realizes that the person he was closest to in the entire world is truly dead, moves me every time.
Ah, 死んでしもうた。
Now, I've seen some frankly stupid discussions on the internet about how these supposed moments of weakness make these characters babies, somehow makes them less masculine. But I'm here to tell you that this is the ideal form of masculinity, because masculinity should never be about swallowing your pain and hiding your emotions. We've seen what that does to actual men in the real world. That is not healthy. Even if masculinity seeks to protect or provide, it can still do so from a place of empathy and understanding, not through toxicity. And these characters show how. Now, the things I've spoken about here are not cherry-picked examples from niche anime to glorify that medium and bash Western media for no reason. These are the genuine stereotypes of shonen anime.
魔力に恵まれなくてずっと悔しかったけど仲間には恵まれたんだな。
There are, in fact, anime that even go a step beyond this, such as the Vinland Saga, which is an incredible exploration of how violence has no place in human society. But that would be what I would call an anime out of the norm. It is not quite mainstream. Western media also has shows and movies which portray a different kind of masculinity. A masculinity which isn't emotionless and isn't hostile. But those are not mainstream either. Shonen anime definitely are. They are the most popular examples of their art form, the equivalent of a Marvel film in Hollywood. So let's compare like to the action-adventure genre in Hollywood. The difference is here in what we are shown to value in male characters, and what kind of behaviors they espouse could not be more different than what we just spoke about. Let's take Marvel and the first Avengers film as an example. A story which follows a similar progression to most shonen anime. A group of remarkable individuals meet and unite to fight for a greater cause or belief. But the male egos in this film are so gross that they are problematic not just for us viewing, but for the mission within the film. Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor in particular are, at least initially, completely incapable of getting along. And not because they cannot, but because they just refuse to want to do so. We spoke about the tropes of anime men, but men in action Hollywood movies have tropes too, and that's that they usually punch first and ask questions later, especially when they see other men. When other men are involved, our male heroes are almost always threatened. They're almost always lone wolves who refuse to play nice. Basically, every Jason Statham character ever.
Everything you could need at your disposal, and we're bringing in an asset from the States to assist you.
I don't need anybody.
And why? Because of those male egos. In The Avengers, as with most action films that feature a group of men working together, a dick measuring contest is inevitable. Men have to immediately assert themselves as the alpha, the strongest, the best, and it always ends up hurting everyone around them.
Put on the suit. Let's go a few rounds.
You people are so petty and tiny.
To clarify, it's not that characters can't have interpersonal conflict. That is often central to storytelling, as it is to our own lives. But what's sad is that the men in these movies are looking for a fight. Where we expect an anime protagonist to make friends first and ask questions later, to see the good in everyone they meet, Hollywood men are always itching for an excuse to throw their fists at each other rather than discuss their problems. The ability to empathize is crucial to what we will talk about next. Expressing emotion. And it's clear when comparing to a different medium that it is possible for there to be another way. Men don't have to behave like this in the movies we watch, but they do. There are other ways to tell compelling stories, we are just choosing not to use them.
Well, to make it through that, you'd have to be the greatest pilot in the universe.
Lucky for us.
Son of a...
Dude, seriously!
Hey, let me...
When your friends are the cause of as much conflict as your enemies, well, it's safe to say those are not ideal friends. And the message this sends out to the men watching is that they should always be confrontational, always be hostile and mistrustful of everyone they meet, especially other men, which in turn makes it hard for those men to form emotional support systems for each other, a key to creating a healthy psychological environment in real life. And so we go back to our original question. When was the last time you saw a grown man cry on screen? Because the other toxic thing that action heroes do is never express their emotions, or at least any emotion that isn't anger. Whether it comes to expressing love for their romantic interest or their appreciation of someone else, men are always content to just nod or grunt or just ignore what they're feeling. And God forbid, they want to tell another man that they value having them in their lives.
And how exactly did you show your compassion?
With balloons!
Did you tell him that you care about him?
It said it on the balloon. You're number one.
Why don't you try actually telling him that you care about him?
All right, look, don't get all girly on me, okay?
So frequently, the closer they actually get to emotional intimacy, the farther away the men in these movies will push away their loved ones. They often deliberately isolate themselves in an attempt to remove the inconvenience of having feelings. But this, as should be obvious by now, is a recipe for disaster. When you're feeling vulnerable to the point of hopelessness, isolating yourself is the last thing you should be doing. And society has taught men that expressing emotion or asking for help makes them weak. Action movies reinforce this idea. Do strong people not feel sadness? Of course they do. Do strong people not need help? Of course they do. And we know that men feel all of these things because that male suicide rate tells us they do. It tells us that men are not the emotionless vessels that Hollywood makes them out to be. that instead they're just hiding and bottling their emotions out of fear. Fear that if they express themselves, they'll be met with ridicule, disgust, or in some cases, even violence, particularly from other men.
No, I think I'm having a panic attack.
Come here. Right here.
Which is why we should encourage a change in the visual media we see. It's time that grown men stopped acting like unsocialized animals. It's time that Hollywood took a lesson or two from the young teens of Japanese anime, who seek to make friends, trust people, and express their emotions in a healthy manner. It's time that more grown men cried like anime boys. And that's it for this video. If you've enjoyed it, then do consider liking and commenting with what topics or media you'd like me to explore next. You can also support me directly via Patreon, and I'd like to thank my current patrons who allow me to keep making videos like these, which are incredibly time consuming and difficult to make. That's it for now. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you very soon.